If your feedback knob on your delay says anything but 0, you're using your delay wrong. Hi, my name is Tyson. I'm a mastering engineer here at Dinosaur Dog Studio, and today we're gonna be talking about delay. But before we actually get to the content of today's video, I want to share with you a freebie that I have for you for watching this video. I created the ultimate mixing checklist for anybody who isn't happy with the quality of their mixes, takes way too long to mix, or if you struggle to get consistent mixes, this checklist is also for you. So you can pick up that checklist at mastering.dinosaurdogstudio.com/checklist, or you can just follow the link in the description of this video. It is the first link. With that said, let's get straight to the content on how to create dynamic, interesting delays. All right, so today we're gonna be diving into some effects and make sure that we don't use boring delay. We have a part here, I'm gonna play it for you just so you can get an idea. We're really gonna be focused on the vocal effects and how it fits inside of this greater picture, because this is the kind of the bridge part of this song. There's lots of space, and so we want to be able to optimize our reverb and delays in order to actually fill up that space in a very tasteful manner, so it doesn't distract from the vocal, but it really adds some character and depth to the song. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna play it for you, and then we'll dive into exactly how we're gonna set this up.
I don't think I say in my head, I look inside my eyes, I tell myself it'll be alright. You'll get there, and don't you cry. But even if you do, tears won't make this song sound.
The first step you're going to want to do for your delay is add a send. Do not ever add a delay or a reverb directly on the channel itself for that vocal. And you'll see why here in a bit at the end of the video, actually. But never, ever do that, okay? We already have a bus set up. If one isn't already set up, you just add a bus to whatever bus you want a send from that channel, and it'll automatically create it in Logic Pro. Just Google it for your specific DAW. Make sure you use a bus for effects, okay? Not only does it save on processing power, but there's a lot more flexibility inherently involved. Okay. So now we have our Vox delay bus set up. What we want to do now is add a delay. You want to add a delay on here where you can have 0 feedback. I prefer using echo or sample delay. That was the sample delay, and here is the echo delay. The first thing you want to do, let's biggerize these, is take your feedback all the way down to 0. So if I play this right now, let's disable that one.
I don't think I say in my head, I look inside my eyes, I tell myself it'll be alright.
Okay, right, so we have this obvious delay going on. The reason why we don't want to have the feedback here is that obviously it's taking up a lot of space, and in order for our delay to actually be dynamic, it needs to change over time. And while it's getting quieter, the actual quality of the sound doesn't change at all. So it's kind of boring. And this is what most people do when they put on a delay. They, tweak their feedback until they get the right amount between each word and, whatever else they want to do. You can add some color here, which does, change it a little bit over time on this particular delay, but ultimately it's still pretty boring. So we're gonna do way more to make this way more exciting. Change our feedback all the way down to 0. We'll get to the sample delay here in a minute. And then, so the next step is after we've done our feedback to 0, we're actually gonna manually add our own feedback using the bus. So I'm gonna have another send off. So this is the delay channel here. And I'm gonna add another send back to itself. So this way, essentially, if I do it all the way up to 0, it's gonna be an infinite delay. You might wanna change this to pre-fader just so that you're, see. So essentially you have an infinite delay now. So I'm just gonna play like one word for you. Obviously, we're not going to have quite that much, but you can see the flexibility that this might give you is you can essentially add as much or little of it as you want. You can have a delay that the entire length of the song based off just one sound at the very beginning. I don't necessarily recommend that, but you can get really creative, right? Create your own pads and whatever else out of just some samples that you have potentially. So now that we've added feedback, now we want to actually start messing with the delay a little bit to get some more character out of it. So in our first line of defense is really just adding some EQ. So I'm going to throw on an EQ here. Again, this is all on our delay channel. That's where we're focused. And let's biggerize this one too. Generally speaking, I'm going to take off some of the high and maybe low end, depending on how thick and muddy the mix is. In this case, I don't think the mix is pretty open right now. The only really bass part we have is an actual bass and the kick. And so there's really not very much like electric guitars or anything that's building up in kind of the low 200 range-ish. We're probably going to leave the low end as it is and just let that taper off. But what I am doing here is I'm taking just the highs off. And because this is, right, a slope, we're not like doing a hard cut. We're just slowly going to be taking out highs as it goes through the cycle. Let me go back up a step. Our first step is that, it comes out of the Vox channel. It gets bussed to our Vox delay bus. It goes through our echo, which then echoes once. So it'll be a quarter delay, and then it will then go through the EQ. So it'll be slightly dampened on the top end by that EQ. And then it goes to our send on the Vox delay, which then goes back into the top of the channel, which then it gets delayed another quarter note, and then it gets a little bit even more top end taken off. So this allows us to dynamically change the vocal so that it's getting darker and darker as it goes on through space. Let's just play it and then see what this actually does for you. Right, so you can see how that really adds a lot of character because now it's just moving further and further back because we're taking off that top end. So it's really cool just creating that dynamic inside of our delay rather than just the boring old delay like this where boring. And I'm gonna add some distortion. And so what this is gonna do, right? The same exact signal chain. So we're just gonna be running the same signal through this channel over and over again and adding just a little bit more of whatever effects we throw on here each time. So, sometimes I'll use some saturation if I want it to be more subtle. In this case, I'm gonna add some this saturator here is just distortion. It's just gonna add a little bit more distortion every time. So I'm gonna put this on fairly low mix. Only a slight portion of it's really adding more and more distortion, but over time, right, it stacks on itself essentially and adds a lot over time. So let's see what this sounds like. I think I kind of got it dialed in a little bit here. All right, yeah, so, you can see how it's becoming more and more distorted. Okay, last thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna move that one down. I'm going to add a compressor with a super fast attack. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add some really, really fast compression. So I'm gonna be really taking off the fronts of each word, cut off the transients, so then it feels further away, so then it doesn't interfere with the lead vocal. And what this is gonna do, especially if we have like longer lines, it'll really separate the lead vocal, the actual vocal that we wanna audibly hear versus the actual effect. So this is another fun little kind of tip that I have. One thing to be careful of though, is that compressor is gonna react with how much signal, how much gain is coming into the effect. So whatever you have here, especially if you're using a dynamic amount of effect or a amount of the lead vocal going into this effect, it's going to change the amount of compression that you're getting as well. So just something to be aware of. That'll make more sense later as we go in. Let's dial this in a little bit. And
I don't think I say in my head. 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 I don't think I say. I don't think I say in my head. I don't think I say in my head.
So that's also limiting some of the actual just volume essentially going through this delay to begin with, which is also kind of nice, so that it's really kind of creating more and more depth as we go. So that's probably it for now in terms of just effects. Right, I'm just kind of adding stuff here. My kind of normal go-to chain is having the delay there, some EQ, and then either some distortion or some saturation, just to kind of give it some more character. If I wanted to be less obvious, right, I'll lean towards the saturation side rather than like the Faturator or another just like overdrive plugin or something like that. Be creative. You can come up with pretty much anything here, so it's super fun. The next thing what we want to do is add some more reverb. We want to soften out this delay. We don't want it to be quite so in your face necessarily. Again, create even more and more depth as we go along here. So what I'm going to do is I already have a reverb set up, so I'm going to send it to that already existing reverb. So this first send, remember, is just our basically feedback loop that we've set up. So, and that's pre-fader. So when I turn this fader down, that will be unaffected. And then this one is actually post fader. So if we want to mix in more or less of this delay, it'll impact the reverb that it's being sent to, which is good. We want that. So I'm just going to add this all the way up to 0, and let's see what we got here.
I don't think I say. I don't think I say.
Yeah, I'm really liking this. So this is turning out good. We're pretty much done with our setting up our delay. Outside of a couple things, enhance this a little bit more. The other thing that I want to mention is that this echo, because our vocal is dead center, this echo is only being done in the center. The only wideness that's coming from it is from the actual reverb that I'm sending it to. So the other option I can do is use this sample delay. So this sample delay is going to be able to create differences between the right and left speaker. We have an issue because this is in samples or milliseconds, and what we want to do is time it to the song so it sounds natural, and it should give us this nice little form here. And so let's see, a quarter note is 484 milliseconds. So that's going to be our goal here. We're going to remove the echo. Unfortunately, this only goes up to 250. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 250 on both sides. And then I'm going to add another one. So now we have 500 milliseconds on both sides being delayed. We want 484. So let's see, that's 16 less. So that would be 236-ish. Assuming that we want roughly the same on both sides, I'm just going to take away a bit more on this side. Or I'm going to do half. Let's see, what do I want to do? So let's pull up my calculator here. So 484 times 0.75. So 363 is halfway between an eighth and a quarter. Actually, maybe I want to do a quarter and a half. 44, 726. Changing my method here. So my delay right is going to be a perfect quarter note. And then I'm just going to add one more sample delay here. My right is going to be 0. And then this one is going to be 26. So this is kind of a hack, honestly, around this, but it's going to be really helpful to create some intrigue in terms of our samples between here. One other thing that I'm going to do, this is a real advanced here, getting real advanced, is we're going to swap our left and right with this plugin here. So this is just a gain plugin. It allows me to swap the left and right signals going in. So it's going to go through the first time being swapped, and then the next time it goes through, it's going to go back. and then the next time it's going to go through, it's going to go back again. So you're constantly changing this up, and how these getting really advanced. This is not necessarily necessary as we go through here, but it's kind of a fun thing to play around with. Now that we have this,
I don't think I say in my head. I don't think I say in my head.
So, right, so now our signal is really, really wide. So that was kind of the purpose of the sample delays, offsetting them a little bit so we make sure we get that really wide stereo spectrum with our effects. So adding to that room reverb that we have set up there, it's now sounding really, really wide with just a main vocal, let alone the entire mix. Now here's within the context. We still have one more step to go, but just so we can catch up to where we're at so far.
I don't think I say in my head. I look inside my eyes. I tell myself it'll be alright. You'll get there, and don't you cry. But even if you do, tears won't make this song sound.
Created a very obvious effect right now. I don't want it to be that obvious because it's distracting from the main vocal. So a couple things we can do. First of all, we can just turn it down, right? So I can mix this in, say, well, let's see how that sounds.
I don't think I say in my head. I look inside my eyes.
Right, so that's adding just a little bit of character there. I'd probably mix that a little bit less actually, because after it gets mastered, it'll bring that out. That's option number one. That's also boring. Option number two is much more exciting, which is automating the signal that goes into your delay. So for example, especially on these parts where I have breaks, it's like right after, say, these words.
I say in my head.
So right after the word say, right, there's a little bit of a break. So that would be a great way to kind of fill up that space with just this, a little bit of subtle effect there. We have a signal going in. So let's turn that back up to 0. And let's say our baseline is that, minus 16 or so, whatever. What we can do here is go into this one word and select just that one word and bring it up. So what we have is a normal line, except just on the word say, it's gonna then create additional delay on just that word to fill up that space. So let's see how that's probably gonna be a little extreme. Let's turn that down to say minus 4.
I don't think I say in my head.
Yeah, so that's a little bit much, but let's do head too, just for kicks and giggles.
I don't think I say in my head.
Still a bit much.
I don't think I say in my head. I look inside my eyes. I tell myself it'll be alright.
Myself, maybe a little less though on that.
Myself, it'll be alright. You'll get there.
There. Go a little bit more on that.
Get there, and don't you cry. But even if you do,
Yeah.
if you do, tears won't make this song sound.
Okay, so there we go. As the start to finish product of our effects. So let's listen to the whole thing. You can really hear what this has actually done to this track. So first I'm gonna play it without the delay at all, and then I'm gonna add it in the second.
I don't think I say in my head. I look inside my eyes. I tell myself it'll be alright. You'll get there, and don't you cry. But even if you do, tears won't make this song sound. When you're done, I don't think I say in my head. I look inside my eyes. I tell myself it'll be alright. You'll get there, and don't you cry. But even if you do, tears won't make this song sound.
I think I would probably adjust this a little bit more. I don't really like the timing of it, but the principle still stands in being able to enhance our stereo spectrum, create a little bit more of intrigue in terms of our effects and how that effect progresses over time so it's not so stale and boring. Even the way it is compared to just the original delay where it was just a simple echo of the same exact signal over and over. This is much more interesting and much more dynamic, and I would 100% take this one over the original. If you found this at all helpful or exciting and you plan on using anything that you learned today, then make sure you give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. I release videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to help you get more professional mixes. All right, with that said, thanks for watching and have a fantastic week.